Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea. I hope you're all good. So back at it with another Q&A. The last one went really well. I've started them up again in case you didn't know, because I've now got a video editor, John, who is Dave's brother, and he's really good, and he decided that we should do it again, so he started collating questions for me to answer for you guys. So loads of you asked plenty of questions on the last video, so I've now got them all here so I can answer some of them in this video. So let's get right into it. So the first question is from Luke Saunders, and he asks, can you explain your thought process when improvising? I guess I could try. I mean, basically, I love to improvise. It's probably the one thing I know how to do best, if that makes sense. Mainly because when I was playing with Ben and Dave back in the day, when we used to have a rehearsal room and we'd be writing music for the band, we spent hours and hours jamming together, and that was always improvised. And to be fair, with like jamming with Pete at Anderton's, we're always improvising. And generally, whenever you see me demo a product and I'm playing, it's always improvised, unless it's a riff that you might know. Always improvising. Sometimes you could. Alright. So my thought process is probably I kind of know a couple of comfort zones, like certain routes. Like I might go, okay, I know what kind of shape I can apply if I start on 7th fret A string being in E. Let me just grab a guitar for a sec. It's not plugged in, but if I'm 7th fret A, I know here, and I'm connecting, and there are many different ways that I've sort of learned to phrase something like that. You just kind of, I guess, the more you do it, the more you learn all these different pathways. And when I'm improvising, the thing I'm not thinking about is the pathway. I just kind of, it's like an immediate thought process where my finger lands there and I go, okay, subconsciously the pathway is mapped out, and then I'll just kind of start moving my fingers around different articulations. The things I'm thinking about more consciously are the articulations. What I mean by that is the sliding up to a note, the bending of the note, if I'm going to use a harmonic, if I'm going to bend down into a note. That's the stuff that's like at the front of my mind. But at the back, I guess the stuff I'm not really thinking about is that scale pathway or any kind of scale or anything like that. I'm just hearing the music and I'm going, okay, I know what key I'm in, and then I'll just put my hand somewhere and go, right, I can kind of connect through, again, like things like intervals, messing around like that. So yeah, I don't know if that really answered your question, but yeah, at the back of my mind is definitely the stuff I'm not really thinking about, which is scale and pathways on the fretboard, like positions and stuff like that. The stuff at the front of my mind is the phrasing and the articulation. It's like speaking, you know what I mean? So I guess hopefully that helped. Next question is from J Dodify, and he says, always intrigued me. You have 3 tracks on your screen armed. Top one is your vocal mic. Assume one of the others is from your load box. The third one, ? Also, are you just listening through your monitors or do you have a cab in the room? So that's logic running there. You can see there are 3 tracks. The top one is my vocal, and then with my load boxes, whether I'm using the aux box or the torpedo, they have two mic outs, so that's 2 different microphones that it's picking up, like 2 different IRs running at the same time, or 2 different microphone impulses. So I always prefer to have 2 rather than 1. That's what that is. And I am just listening through my monitors. Yeah, sounds great, to be honest, so I can't really complain. I do have a little Victory 1x12 that the Kemper runs through sometimes, but generally speaking, I'm just throwing it out through the monitors, and it sounds great. Next question is from Dave Miss 40. He says, ask the Fro. To record great guitar tones in a home studio, what's the best solution? UA, aux, or Kemper? The Kemper. The UAD aux box is a load box, so it doesn't have really any. You can't just like plug into it as a guitar and then get loads of tones like that. You have to have an amp going into it. So I suppose where the Kemper wins there is because you can have as many amps as you want in the Kemper, whereas the aux box you have to have the physical amps to plug into it. So for recording at home, if you're wanting lots of varied guitar tone, then Kemper all the way. I love my Kemper. I think it's one of the most valuable studio tools I've ever come across, and I fully endorse the Kemper as a home studio device. And people tour with them as well because they're great for that too. But where I really think it shines for my personal use is at home in the studio, where I can just dial in a quick tone. It's inspiring and I can get going. The UAD aux box is a great load box with some great features, as I've been using it in the guitar you've heard in this video. But I am running it with the Super Kraken, so the thing is, like, it needs an amp, whereas the Kemper is just straight up awesome. Here's a question from Charlie Hilton. Hi man, awesome work with Toska recently. Thank you very much, dude. It's been brill. What's your view on Dream Theater and John Petrucci in particular? I used to listen to Dream Theater and Liquid Tension Experiment a lot when I was younger. Train of Thought is my favourite Dream Theater album. I also liked Scenes from a Memory, and yeah, those two were in particular really strong albums for me. And I used to sit there and slave over learning the stuff. And then John Petrucci's Suspended Animation solo album, for me that was a real big one. Just listening to it a lot and trying to take it in, and his use of, you know, sections and chords and all the voicings he used to use. I think John Petrucci is a phenomenal guitar player, and I've always looked at him and thought that guy is sick. And I've definitely taken influence from him in some areas. You know, I suppose one of the things I was, if I'm allowed to say, like less keen on is the kind of, he'd play loads of beautifully bluesy, feely stuff over his solos, or like just the feely, emotional guitar playing, and then suddenly switch across to neck pickup and then just play really stupidly fast, which is awesome. It's very impressive, but sometimes for me, I just wanted to hear a little bit more of the feels. That isn't in any way criticising John Petrucci as a musician or guitar player. He's an incredible songwriter, incredible guitar player, and he makes great guitars, because I've got one. So I look up to John Petrucci in a lot of ways. So hats off. But yeah, that's what I think of Dream Theater and John Petrucci. Here's a question from Matthew Bill. He says, how do you design the transition tracks for Toska? So I guess, so for a start, the easiest one to answer there is Ataraxy, which is a piano piece that I wrote a while ago, and then I wanted to put it on the album, so we sat in the studio at Middle Farm, and I just kind of, because I'm not a piano player, I had to work out how to play it in the way a pianist would, and I hope it came across right. But that was easy because I'd already kind of pre-written it. I just needed to run over it a few times to get the dynamic and the phrasing right. I love writing with piano, but I'm not a pianist. For the other ones, Dave came over, we hooked up a bunch of things like the Kemper, loads of pedals, and I used the Moog synth and generally like the subsequent 37 on Moog, and we just experimented for a day and basically just came up with those connective pieces that you heard. It's always fun when you get together in a studio to do things like that, because you know you don't have to be precious on specific parts. It's about creating a mood and an atmosphere. So that was really fun. But yeah, that's basically how we did it. Next question is from Iriwaz. I don't know how you say that, I'm really sorry. He says, so here's one. What is it that Fender do so well that allures you to their guitars? Also, I love your work and sound like Toska, please. Okay, thank you, dude. What is it about Fender? Maybe it's because my dad had a 79 Fender Strat, and that's the first guitar I kind of played. But I don't necessarily think it's always to do with that. I think I got into blues guitar playing really late. Like, for me, I was always about technical guitar playing, and you know, like Nuno and Satriani and Vai and like Petrucci and then Govan and guys like that. And that's what I wanted to do. And then I discovered through my friend Dan, Philip Sace, and obviously like I've heard, you know, I know of like obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix, Robin Ford, people like that, but I didn't really listen to them because that wasn't my education. That wasn't what my dad got me to listen to. But it wasn't until Dan said, oh, you need to listen to Philip Sace, this guy's on fire, that I listened to it. And then it was he was like the gateway to all these other blues players, and I just got really into it. And I think I'd always liked the sound of that like spanky neck pickup, because the Nuno influence, he was always about that funky, bluesy, funky, stratty kind of sound with the 59 and the N4. It has that stratty tone to it. So it wasn't fresh to my ears. It was like, I know that sound, but I never really spent a lot of time with like a Fender Strat. And so Philip Stace inspired me to go out and get a Fender. So I had an American Standard that I got. And then I remember at Anderton's trying out the custom shop Strat, this one, in fact, that I got. And it was just like, what is going on? These custom shop guitars are just incredible. Like, for me, it feels like the real deal. I know they're reissues and I'd love to have an original, but when I picked this up and played it for the first time, I was like, this feels worn in, it feels vibey, there's energy in it, and it, like, I just immediately felt something when playing this guitar, and it gave me a vibe of trying to play like those guitarists. And then, you know, obviously guys like John Mayer, who I'm a huge fan of, and then hit the 61 Strat, and then I just kind of got a bit of the bug for it. So that's why I got the 61 Strat. And then obviously the Fender Telecaster is a guitar that I've always liked and needed in like to record with in the collection, and that's where that one came along. So it's kind of, yeah, I got a bit of a bug for it. I think I'm done now because I've got the two Strats and the Tele, but yeah, it isn't, I think it's specifically Fender custom shop, because I find those custom shop guitars the elite. I mean, obviously there's master built, but the custom shop stuff for me is the elite Fender vibe. If you're going to get a Fender guitar and really want to feel that classic awesome Fender thing that isn't a vintage Fender, it's the custom shop stuff. It's just made so well, and it sounds and feels so good. So yeah, that's why. Next question is from Jamie White. He said, heard you mention Tom Misch in a recent video. Do you listen to or play much of that kind of soul, hip hop, jazz thing as well? I like Tom Misch, and I like a lot of that kind of neo soul, kind of jazz R&B stuff. I listen to it in my own time, and that's why that First Contact video was inspired by. I guess I do like that kind of stuff. I don't play it very often, but I understand it, not on that level, because there's some incredible musicians in that world, but I do really enjoy listening to it. I guess I just don't really play it that much. I think getting into more bluesy, feelsy kind of stuff, again, John Mayer is a great access to that world, because he's got the blues thing, but then he mixes in that neo soul hip hop influence as well, and guys like Pete as well, they really understand it. So I like it a lot, and I'd like to get better at that kind of stuff, and I try and do it in my own time, but to be honest, I don't really put that stuff out there because I'm not convinced I can do it convincingly. It's just something I'm working on in my own time. But yeah, that First Contact was my first attempt at showing you guys that side of stuff. So yeah, I like Tom Misch as well, he's awesome. Next question is from Terry Tickler, and he says, hi Beer, do you still use your awesome PRS SE? If you don't know what that guitar is, it's a single cut SE 245, and I do still have it. Well, Hannah uses it now for writing music. I put some some new pickups in it. It sounds awesome. I don't have it in this video, it's upstairs, but in a future video I'll grab it and play it. But yeah, I still have it. Final question is from Luke McFarlane, and he says, hi Beer, what do you believe is better for one's budget? Buying a well-made second-hand guitar and modding it, i.e. changing the pickups and the trem block, or just buying a brand new guitar? To answer that, I would say, in terms of the quality with the spec of the guitar, which one's going to end up being better, it would be the second-hand and modding it, because you'll find a decent guitar for less money, but then if you want to mod it, then you probably end up spending more than you would on a brand new one, if that makes sense. So ultimately the spec will be better of the second hand with the mods, but for your budget it'd be better to get a brand new one that's like half decent. Just because people get, like, I know I would get carried away on modding a guitar. Like, pickups are expensive if you want good ones, trem blocks are expensive. You know, you can sink about 500 quid on mods to a guitar, whereas if you spent 500 quid, well, and then add the, say, 400-500 quid on the second hand price, you're talking 950, £1,000, and for £1,000 you can get a lot of guitar off the shelf. So hopefully that answered your question. If it was me, I would get a second hand and mod it, just because I like messing around with guitars and changing them up and stuff. But yeah, budget friendly, probably a brand new one. So there we go. There is another Ask the Fro Q&A. Thank you very much for all the questions. It's awesome that you keep bringing more questions to the table, and I really enjoy making these videos. So if you've got more questions, put them in the comment section below, and I'll do my very best to answer them all. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and I will see you all very soon.